You're listening to the podcast of Rain City Church.
Well, guten Morgen, everyone. My wife and I just got back from Germany just a couple of days ago. Some of you may know. If you're new, you wouldn't know. But my wife has a disease called lipedema, which they do not treat here in America. And so we found this out at the beginning of the year, and the best way to treat this is to go to Germany. So one of the world's foremost experts on lipedema is in Germany. And of course, Schwarzenbachenwald, Germany, as many of you know. And so she's been over there 3 times now, and what lipedema is it is a toxic fat. Our in a healthy body, your fat layer sits on top of your lymphatic system, but when you have lipedema, the lipedema fat goes down into your lymphatic system. So we thought actually for a while that Marissa might have cancer because it looks a lot like cancer. But she didn't have cancer. We finally got answers. All this to say, we just got back from her final surgery in Germany, which was a success. Thank you. Thank you guys all. It's really been so incredible to see how this community has just rallied around us during this time. So many of you are bringing meals and helping with kids and doing, all kinds of stuff. And we're just so grateful. We could absolutely not have done this without you. This last time I got to go with her. The first 2 times I wasn't able to, but this time I was able to. At an incredible family at the church donated some air miles so that I could do it. And so we were over there, and in Germany it's a little different, and so they don't put you under for this surgery, which they definitely should have because it's intense. But she's awake. She just put an eye mask on. They gave her a sedative, and they kind of did some local anesthetic and numbed her up. And then what they end up doing is they end up putting in, it's essentially like medical liposuction. So it's not for shaping, it's actually to try to get all of the lipids, the bad fat, out of her body so that it doesn't continue to destroy her lymphatic system. And so I was there, and I'm dressed pretty much like this, and then the doctor comes out, and he speaks perfect English, and he says, "Okay, are you ready?" And I was like, "Ready for what?" And he said, "Well, do you want to come get the scrubs on so you can come on into the operating room with us, with your wife?" "No, I'm good. No, I'm good. I'm right here. It's no problem." He's like, "No, come on. You traveled all the way across the world. Were you in there when your children were born?" "Yep, I was. That's why I'm here in the waiting room, And he's like, "No, come on." So he puts me in scrubs and so we go. He didn't physically put me in scrubs. That would be awkward. So I got the scrubs on. I meet him in there. Then we go in, and then I'm just sitting. There's a stool at the head of the table. So my wife's head is here, and I'm just sort of gently, rubbing her hair to comfort her as this dude is about to open up her arms and stick a thing about that big in and just start filling it up with fluid and then vacuuming the stuff out. And I'm not super queasy guy. I can usually handle this kind of stuff, but this was disgusting. And so I was like, oh man, it was rough. I won't go into a ton of detail because I know there's some people with queasy stomachs, but at one point, this guy speaks perfectly. He's a very bright guy, he's German, and he's just asking me all kinds of questions, and most of them were questions about President Trump. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, let's talk baseball. Can we talk baseball? And so he's got all kinds of questions about Donald Trump and guns. And so I'm just like, no, come on, man. And so he's just in there doing this, and he does these 4 or 5 times a day. So this is nothing to him. So he is just in there going for it. My wife is so brave, and she's just there trying to breathe through the pain. And this guy's just going for it. And a few times, though, he's got a little button on his feet that would turn off the suction, or it would, once you got it out, once you let it up, the suction would stop, and it would just kind of let a little burst of air out. And a couple of times, he didn't let go of that button in time. And so I'm sitting there, and he's asking me these questions, and we're having a conversation. And then he takes the thing out of my wife's arm and then lets go of the button, to which I get on the face, in the glasses, and I'm like trying, and he doesn't even, he sees, and he's like, whoopsie, and I'm like, whoopsie? Like, I'm like trying, like, okay, and we're talking, and I'm like, for better, for worse, for better, for worse, for better, for worse. And so, my sweet wife, she's got the eye mask on the whole time. She doesn't realize. And so I just never thought I would see that deep into my wife. But now I have, and it was right there. And Germany, guys. We got back, and we were talking about it yesterday. My wife's not here, by the way. She's still home resting and trying to figure out, because what we noticed is she's got incisions, and her whole arm's just wounds. And people kept coming up to her and going, "How are you?" And they would grab her arms, or they'd want to give her a big hug, and she's like crying. And they're like, "Oh, I know, it's gonna be okay." When we were in Germany, when we landed, there was an accident. We accidentally booked the rental car for the wrong time, and we rented it on the U.S. date, not the German date when we landed. So when we got there, we landed in Munich during Oktoberfest and did not have a rental car. So the rental car was gone, and so they said, well, hey, we do have some rental cars left, but they're all luxury cars. Are you okay with that? Yeah, we're okay with that. So they ended up giving us a Mercedes-Benz. That was the nicest Mercedes I've ever driven. It was like a Z-Class. They don't even exist in America. And so, actually, I don't know what it was, but it was amazing, okay? And so we drove the Autobahn, and let me tell you, Germans know how to do driving correctly. We were hauling in this thing that weighed roughly 37 tons, right? But we were just going for it, and just like occasionally, like I just like kind of waved to the people to the side, and Marissa's like, you can't wave like that in Germany. So I kept waving like that. And then, so I try to do a lot of bending, and then, we're blowing. We were driving so fast. They know how to do engineering. They engineer cars really well in Germany. All the nice cars that we have in America, most of them come from Germany. It's amazing. They do breakfast really well in Germany, guys, really well. Why? Because they just put out all the meats, all of them. And it's like there's a tiny side of fruit. And that's where I'm like, you're getting this right. You're doing it right. This is amazing. It's such a clean and orderly nation. They've got really, they take care of their people, their health care. They do really well. The beer there is amazing. I found out the reason why is because in the 1500s, they passed a law that you can only ever have 3 ingredients in German beer, which is just, it's great. It's, and we were there for Oktoberfest, so we had a beer, and we're like, this is very good beer. This is incredible. There are some areas for improvement for Germany. Number 1, smiling. No one smiles. 0 people. And apparently you look like an absolute idiot if you walk around like I did the whole time, like an American, go like this to people. And they would just like immediately look down and walk away, to which I found out later by one of the locals, apparently they thought I had a mental disorder. So there's that. Dinner's not great there. You can only eat so much sausage, like their breakfasts are great, but man, dinner, it was okay. The other thing that they could really, I think, improve on from when we were there is the whole idea of church. When we were there, we got to visit, one of the times we kind of ventured out very briefly, we went to Nuremberg, and we got to see one of the castles there, and we got to visit an old cathedral. There's some pictures that we took of this beautiful old church in Nuremberg. You can see it's just this gorgeous cathedral, and it's a tourist attraction. It's where people come and basically tour this church. And what's interesting about it is talking to somebody there, they were saying that the busiest days of their week are Monday through Saturday. And then the lightest day of the week is Sunday, because no one actually attends church. And that's actually not just a German thing. That's a very European thing. Church is dying. We're seeing it happen across the East Coast in America now. We're definitely seeing it happen up here in the Pacific Northwest as well. And it's something where we've gotten to this point where the church, as we think about church, it's not what we do anymore. I'd ask some local people, what do you do for church? And they say, oh, well, some people are still Catholic, some people are Lutheran. And I said, well, okay, well, do people attend? They said, well, only the old people. Some of the old people still attend church. No young people go to church anymore. And I think the reason why a lot of that is, there's a lot to it, but I want to unpack just a little bit today why I think this is happening and where we find ourselves right now, where we sit. And so I'm going to walk us through just a little bit of church history, so just hang with me because I'm going somewhere with this. But our word church actually comes from a German word. The German word is Kirche. And Kirche, which we found out actually on the way, there's an Autobahn Kirche in Germany, which was odd because I thought, man, that must be the fastest sermon that you can get in Germany. It's like, thank you, Autobahn jokes. And so, shut up, Christina. So, Kirche is a German word. It means this, a German word that means a location. It means the house of God. It means a place where you go. That's where we got our English translation of the word church. However, if you go back to the first time the word church appears in the New Testament, it's where Jesus says, he's talking to Peter, he says, I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. Now, the term that is used there is a Greek term that is ekklesia. Ekklesia means a purposeful community of people. Now, how did we go from ekklesia, when Jesus was talking about a purposeful gathering of people, to a location, to the house of God, to a place that you go? Well, if we go back, which we're about to actually next week, we're starting a brand new series, I'll talk about it in a minute, looking at the book of Acts. But if you go back to the infancy of the Christian church, you will see that people would try to gather. They would gather publicly, but very quickly they weren't able to gather publicly anymore because there were all kinds of persecutions that would take place. In fact, very famously, like here's a painting, Nero, those are on the poles there, those are Christians who are about to be lit on fire. They would have parties where Nero would invite people in, and they would just watch the Christians burn throughout the nights. Christians were famously persecuted by emperors like Nero, Domitian, Diocletian. And then even during areas or times where maybe there wasn't that hardcore persecution, Christians could never hold positions of authority. They were ostracized by their communities. They were charged with random crimes that they didn't commit so that they could be thrown into jail. They were stripped of property. So gathering together as Christians was dangerous. It was something much like we see kind of in the underground church in China, right? That it was something that you had to have a deep conviction, a deep belief about something, or else you were literally laying your life on the line. Now, we're going to fast forward a little bit to a time where this, what Nero had called this little Jewish cult, right? Now it has exploded throughout Israel and where the Romans have occupied, and now we've gotten to this point where there are so many Christians, it's a problem for the people in charge. Now enter this guy. This is Constantine, the Emperor Constantine. He famously converts. So here is a painting. There's many paintings of Constantine's conversion, but here is one. This is how he explains it. Hey, some angels came to me with a shield with a cross on it in the sky, and now I have become a Christian. Now, if you ask me, this is my opinion, some historians disagree. If you look at it, it's super flimsy. Did he actually have a conversion? I highly doubt it. And here's why I highly doubt it. Because he now saw that he was going to lose power unless he could somehow harness these people and kind of bring them back into the fold under his authority. So what does he do? He says, hey guys, I'm a Christian too. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Right? I mean, this has been happening forever, guys. Like, people in power will say whatever they need to get a group of people to join them. And then you look at the fruits of their life and it doesn't line up, right? Now, I'm not just talking about Donald Trump right now. I certainly am. But go back in history. This has been all throughout American history, guys. It's all throughout world history. You look at a people, you say, I need those people. How do I get them? I'm one of you. Look, we're all in this together. I mean, I don't do any of the same things that you do, but I'll say what you need me to hear, right? Right there, okay? We've got Constantine. He does this. He gets these people on board, and now he says, hey, guys, we're going to all be in this together. It's legal to be Christian now. You don't need to hide it. In fact, you don't have to kind of meet underground or in homes anymore. That's what Christians would do. They would meet. They would have basically a potluck, where they would get together and they would sing some songs and they would have they would share the Lord's Supper and communion, and they would pray for one another and encourage one another, and these things would go on for hours. And now Constantine's saying, hey, you don't need to do that. You can go to a place that we're going to call the Basilica. The Basilica was just a public meeting place, but now Constantine says, you guys can have them. This is the Christian place now. So what were the basilicas now have become the big churches, the cathedrals, right? So now that's where you go. And now all of these people, these Roman and these Greek people are coming in who are now, quote unquote, converting. And a lot of these people are in power because, again, they need to keep these people in tow with them, and they need their vote or their support. And so they're starting to come together, and now they're introducing things from their religious cultures, i.e. like robes. People would wear really ornate robes in some different Greek cults and sects. And so now they brought that into Christian worship. And then sort of these big ornate choirs, that was a Roman thing. So they bring that in to this. And so suddenly we have something that looks very different from when the church began. Suddenly we have something that looks like what I saw in Nuremberg, something beautiful. I love going into old cathedrals. I think they're incredible. Beautiful. All of the thought and the work and just the art that went into it. It's incredible. But here we are today, where on a Sunday, most of those places are empty. What happened? Why? How did we go from ecclesia, a purposeful community of people, a gathering, people who know that there's something greater than what they are doing, that we're all part of something bigger? How do we go from that to, I'll see you at church on Sunday for about an hour? How did we go from ecclesia to Kirche? Well, one of the main ways that we got there was because then after we've got all this stuff post-Constantine, then we've got these ideas. And then during the Reformation, if you know that history with Martin Luther, he was a very famous German. He was the guy that pounded the letter on the doors of the Catholic Church, and actually some very valid points. But he's saying, we want to kind of take this thing back. This has become too political. It's become... this is all about power. We want to take this back into something that's different. However, that was right around the time when the printing press came about, and Martin Luther's Bible was one of the most widely distributed Bibles in the world. And in fact, it was the most widely distributed book at the time. And in there, that word, ecclesia, was translated as Kirche, the house of God. So it seemed to be more about a place you go as opposed to a thing that you are. Why do we continue now to live with this shift in vocabulary? Because think about it for a moment. This is like saying that all of us are on the Seahawks. We are all the 12th man, right? We're definitely all in. You're literally going to be playing today. Okay? And then in about a year from now, because of a shift, we're going to say, well, the 12th man means like what it is now. Like you come, you do this thing, you cheer for an hour, make sure you wear your colors, like you look, you drink a lot of expensive beer, guys. Like that's what we're going to do together. That's what it means, right? And now we sit in this place here where obviously we're in a school. We're not in our own, basilica. We're not in our own cathedral. We're not in our own space. We're in a renter space on purpose because we want to keep that cost low so that we can continue to pour into people where the church is supposed to be, where a purposeful community, a gathering of people can make a difference in the world. It started as something that we could do together. It became something that we had to have someone else do for us. And now we're getting back to this vision, which is we want to help everyone experience God in the everyday. That's what Jesus brought to us 2,000 years ago. He doesn't just say you can experience God through the pastor's sermon every Sunday. I hope you do. But that's just 1 hour of 167. How do we find more and more ways to really, truly experience God in the everyday? We got this from the Message version of Romans 12, which I love. It says, so here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work and walking around life and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for Him. So today we're finishing up our Lead with Love series by just talking through these final bits of sort of this 3-year vision that we believe that God has given us of where we can go together as a community. So that is our vision. Our purpose just builds on our vision, which is that we want to help everyone experience God in the everyday through discovering what it means to be loved by Him, to belong to and build an authentic community, compelling us to become a positive force, achieving our God-given potential. Easier way to remember it is just simply this. We want to help people be loved, belong, and become. So we've talked about those the first 2 weeks. Last week, Matt got up and talked about our values, what we believe kind of makes us, our authenticity, inclusivity, generosity, creativity, and reciprocity. If you've missed any of this series, I would encourage you to just go back on the app and watch or listen to some of these just so you kind of have a better idea of where we'll be heading over the next 3 years. This next one, though, is going to be brand new, and I'm excited to kind of dig in just for the next few minutes on this idea. This is brand new to us, this idea of spiritual practices that we'll be practicing throughout seasons of the year. So we'll have 6 different spiritual practices. These will be annual rhythms. We've been talking about spiritual practices since we began, but what we found is that when you talk about only once or twice a year, it's not enough for people to be like, well, all right, I'm going to make, silence, a time of silence, a part of my everyday life. Like you might have a good week, and then it goes away. And so what we'd rather do is take 2 months of every year to focus on one of these practices so that we can, as a community, figure out ways to make this a part of a natural, holy, sacred rhythm of our everyday lives. Not go back to this old idea of that anything that I do that's holy or sacred needs to be church-related, meaning it has to, I have to be at a place on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning. It means every moment of your life, you have the opportunity to recognize how sacred and how holy it is in the presence of God. Scott Erickson is going to be here at the beginning of each of these to help us understand a little bit more about ways that we can incorporate these into our lives. You don't know Scott, he's an incredible artist. He did all this stuff up here, all of the icons, things that you've seen out there. He has done, but he is also studying to be a spiritual mentor. And so this is a big part of what he's been learning is just how do you make this a part of your everyday life. Through the app, if you haven't gotten the app, it's a really important piece of this whole thing because that's going to be the hub that kind of keeps us connected as we're out and about kind of doing our things, but that we would all know that we're connected in this together. And so there's Vincent. I didn't change the picture on purpose. I know it drives him nuts. Vincent, that's the guy who got up here, did the prayer request, and just tried to put me out of a job. That's amazing when you can just from recall, Matthew 14 says, I don't know what Matthew 14 says. I gotta look it up. I do this every week, and I'm always like, wait, which one is that? So, way to go, jerk. So if you don't have the app, make sure you download it. That'll keep you connected through push notifications, just kind of let you know maybe some prompts, some questions, some opportunities for meetups, or just different ways that we can stay connected and really make some of these spiritual practices part of our daily life. Also, it's going to be part of our groups calendar. So for 2 months, we'll kind of be following loosely the liturgical calendar with the season of Advent. And then in February, March, so we'll be responding, releasing, renewing, investing, centering, and enlightening. And then the group seasons are February and March for releasing, in June and July for investing, and then October, November for enlightening. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. So if I'm going to dive into these very briefly, let me just talk you through responding, the practice of worship and gratitude. So that'll be December through January. That'll lock up with the season of Advent. So we were doing, we already have that natural rhythm of doing the Rainmakers campaign, which, how great was that story this morning of Mackenzie? I mean, I love that our kids are getting into this right from the get-go, that they're thinking, what would be better than me just getting a bunch of toys on my birthday? It'd be better for people to have clean water. And so it's so fun to see this happening all throughout the church, not just with the adults. So we'll continue to do that and really kind of keep leaning into what does worship and what does gratitude mean, especially in a season where, at Christmas time, where you have a lot of warm feelings, but it's also hard to feel grateful, I think, because it's so consumeristic now. So how do we pause and recognize that maybe we should be grateful first for what we have, and then move on from there as a place, instead of a place of, what do I want this year? And also, I kind of like that, but that's last season's. So looking at some of those opportunities through worship and gratitude, the next one is the practice of releasing, the practice of accountability and confession. Now, we very intentionally put this in the rainy season here. So this will be in February and March, where there's all kinds of stats. In Seattle, people just turn inward. We hibernate, right? We don't go and see people. People are generally less excited, less energized, less happy during this season. So we're saying, let's be miserable together. Come on, guys. No, we're saying, come on, this is a time that we have to take an extra step out into a place of community. Now, this will be something that grows over time. We don't just expect immediately that there would be accountability and confession with a bunch of strangers. We're going to have to learn how to trust people, how to get to know people. But as we do, we will continue to learn about accountability and confession. Which, by the way, if you are looking for great ways to get connected and engaged here at church, this Thursday, we're having a Connect event. We have those about once a quarter. And that's this Thursday at the Lab, which is just a few miles away in Bellevue. On your app, if you were to go to the events, the calendar there, you'd see all the information right there. You can RSVP. We'd love to see you there. This is the best way to actually get to meet people and get to know their name, get to know something about them, and have the beginnings of a relationship. The whole staff will be there. A lot of people come to these. It's really, really fun. So this is not just for new people. It's for anybody that's looking to connect in a fast-growing church and just see who else is here. And, do we have something in common? Can we hang out? That's coming up this Thursday. The next one is renewing, the practice of Sabbath rest and recreation. That's married to Easter. So Easter is always married to the season of spring, this time of new life, and for the rest of the world, except for here, where it's still rain. But we get 2 weeks of spring, and it's glorious. But we want to make sure that is a time that we are really making an effort to find Sabbath rest and recreation, not just something that when's the last time you did something in your life that gave you rest and you didn't keep score, that you didn't count, that you didn't try to think, well, I could monetize this, or that it's a have to. Well, I have to go out and run because if I don't run, I'm too stressed. Like, what is a thing in your life, a natural rhythm in your life that you can find some of that Sabbath rest and recreation. Investing in June and July, the practice of serving and generosity. So this is a time that we especially, while the kids are out of school, that we want to give families an opportunity to serve together as well. So we'll be giving you opportunities and also encouraging you to go out and find opportunities to serve in your communities, in your neighborhoods, around the world. There'll be some mission opportunities that we'll try to come up with that would be appropriate for some of the younger kids to go on as well. And so this would be something that we just want to make sure that this is, everybody's doing this. This isn't just the idea that, well, once I'm an adult, once I'm grown, I'll be able to do this. And then there's centering, the practice of silence and prayer. We put this in August because August usually is kind of a down month. We don't quite get to that yet in the beginning of August, so it's kind of a nice time that we can practice silence. We'll do a silent retreat. We'll try to put it in, but we kept it in for September because that's the time when it goes crazy. In fact, most of us are just getting out of that time of getting back up and running. And so we want to make sure we put this in during that crazy time. Where are you finding a time to center? Where are you finding a time to be silent? When are you finding a time to actually pray? To listen, to hear from God. It's so important. And then finally, enlightening, the practice of Bible study and spiritual knowledge. We are beginning this next week. We are going to, as a church, study the book of Acts together. So it's the first time that we've ever really done this officially with a reading plan, and from first grade all the way through adults, everyone is going to be doing this together. And so every fall we will be working through, as an entire church, through a book of the Bible. Now, we'll be working through books of the Bible throughout the year, but in the fall is when we'll do it all together as an entire church. Groups will be doing it together, that we'll have the kids doing it together. There is a reading plan. So on your app, if you go to the resources tab, and then you can find the Bible tab, then right there is there's an opportunity for the Acts YouVersion Bible study. And so you can click on the website. You just need to sign up for a YouVersion account, and then it'll track with you kind of where you're at. We've tried to set it up so that it's not going to be overwhelming, so that if you miss a day or two or three, you're not just going to say, well, forget it. I'm just going to not do it anymore. Listen, if you skip a day or two or three and you don't have the time to make it up, just pick it back up, okay? Somebody else will fill you in. It's like we're back in school, okay? I was reading last night. Okay, got it, thank you. So there's no tests. This is just for us to really understand how this early church, these people that were right face-to-face with Jesus, now have the opportunity to experience God in the everyday, and what can we take from that and put it into our lives today. So make sure that you've signed up for the reading, that you've downloaded the reading plan, that you've got that. It starts today, and we'll just start rolling. And so then the reading plan will kind of lock up with Sundays, so that we'll be speaking on right around the place that we're reading all together. And then if you end up meeting in groups, you'll end up having discussion around where we're all at together on that day. Or, if you want to kind of go backwards from there, that's great too. But there's lots of opportunity for us to, as an entire church, to come together and do this. So make sure that you download that, and we're going to get rolling next week. And also next week, don't forget 2 services, back to 2 services. We've run out of chairs for every service now, and so we're going back to 2 services, 9:30 and 11 o'clock, starting next Sunday when we launch our Acts series.
We hope you enjoyed this message. For more information and resources, go to RainCityChurch.com. Thanks for listening.